Hello and welcome everybody to the first episode of the JBA All In Podcast.
Our podcast is currently streaming on Podbean and YouTube. The JBA All In Podcast is your one-stop sports shop podcast for news around the sports world.
I'm here with Brendan and my name is Jack, and we're very excited to bring you the news today. We have a very packed lineup of segments today, so let's jump right into it.
All right, it's time for the hot topic, everybody. First up on our list, Jamal Adams was traded to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks received Jamal Adams and a 2022 fourth-round pick, and the Jets received safety Bradley McDougald, a 2021 and 2022 first-round pick, and a 2021 third-round pick. What are your thoughts, Jack? Who won the trade, and what does this mean for Seattle?
I think this is actually a really good trade for both sides, in my opinion. Obviously, the Jets had to get rid of Adams. He was always asking for a trade. And they did get a lot of good picks out of this and a decent player. So I think the Jets really won on their side. But this obviously helps make the Seahawks even more stacked. They were already a really good team to begin with. And now with such a good player like Jamal Adams in their secondary, this really just elevates the Seahawks and really changes how I look at this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Jamal Adams, the Seahawks a couple of years ago, they had that amazing defense, the Legion of Boom. They had Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, et cetera, et cetera. Now, really, they still have a good defense, but really their only star on their defense is Bobby Wagner. And Bobby Wagner is really good, best linebacker in the league in my opinion. And now adding Jamal Adams to the secondary, I think as you said, I think the secondary gets a lot better now because, you got Jamal Adams, the best safety in the league, in my opinion. Plus, you got a young corner in Shaquille Griffin, who's really been showing signs of stardom. Plus, you got Quentin Dunbar, a veteran who had a really good season last year. So, in my opinion, I think the secondary now becomes really, really good. I think this defense becomes elite. And now I think the Seahawks – I think they're now a lock for the playoffs, barring any unforeseen injuries and all that. I think they're locked for playoffs now. Before, I thought maybe, there could be a couple teams that could, overtake them in the race for one of the three wild cards. But I think now it makes them a lock. I think they're now can contend with the 49ers for the NFC West title. I don't think they're going to win the NFC West. I think the 49ers still win the NFC West. But I think it's very likely the Seahawks will be the number one wild card this year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, they were always going to make the playoffs, in my opinion, because you've got a top 5 quarterback in Russell Wilson, and you've got a young bright star in DK Metcalf. But this really just elevates their team as a whole. And now, instead of just being, they're probably going to make the playoffs, but there's a chance that other teams overtake them, now I think it's very clear that they are going to be one of the wild card spots. And like you said, they're probably not going to beat the 49ers, but they do have a much higher chance now that they've added Jamal Adams. And speaking about big deals or big trades, Mookie Betts has signed with the Dodgers for, I believe, a
12-year, $365 million contract extension. So it starts next year. So so he's locked up for 13 years on the Dodgers, including this year.
That's the rest of his career unless we trade him. Guys, I'll be real with you. I don't think we're trading Mookie Betts anytime soon. I am stoked as a lifelong Dodgers fan, seeing our team become even more stacked. Even before we had Mookie, our team was already contender for the championship. And then we added the AL MVP along with Cody Bellinger and the stack lineup, Max Muncy, and a bunch of young talent in Will Smith, Gavin Lux, Matt Beatty, Kyle Garlick. We're just stacked. I'm excited to see what happens in the future.
Yeah, the Dodgers have been contending for World Series for a good amount of years now, and they're still young. And now they got Mookie locked up for most likely the rest of his career. He'll probably retire before that contract is over, if I'm being realistic. But I think if the Dodgers get 2 to 3 rings plus out of Mookie Betts and the team, I think it'll be more than worth it. They should have a ring right now within the past decade from that 2017 season.
I completely agree with you.
I think they would have won that if like if you look at, for example, like Kershaw's home away splits and that stuff, and also there were 2 extra inning games in that World Series. Both of them happened to be in Houston, and both of them Houston happened to win. So I think maybe turn the tables. Maybe first of all, if Houston wasn't doing what they were doing, that could have definitely give Dodgers. It definitely would have given them that edge, and I think the Dodgers could have came out on top on one, if not both, of those extra inning games. And also, as you said, the Dodgers game even more stacked. They've been stacked forever. They're just like power. They're just a home run fest. They're first in the league, and they're third in the league in home runs, I believe, right now, but first in runs. They have 21 runs scored with 3 games, which is a lot. And
that's crazy. 21 in 3 games is absolutely nuts.
Yeah, and Mookie Betts. Well, I mean, the Giants aren't a great team, but still,
it's still impressive.
It's still impressive. But
yeah, and
one thing I will say though is that the Giants also are top 10 in hits in the MLB right now, I believe, if not top 5. So that's one thing, because if you're allowing a lot of hits to the Giants, that's not good for a team. When you're going up against more elite teams that can really hit the ball, like the Yankees or the Astros are still really good. And also, like you said, Mookie Betts 2018 AL MVP, Cody Bellinger 2019 NL MVP. They've got multiple MVPs on their roster. It's crazy.
Mostly relief pitching has probably been our weakest point in the past few years. But now with our starting pitchers are stacked. We've got Walker Buehler. Obviously, we've got the man Clayton Kershaw. And with the addition of Brusdar Graterol from a trade that we acquired Brusdar Graterol on a trade, he's a very talented young prospect. If you watch some film on him, you can see he throws heat. He's absolutely amazing. And just adding more pitchers in general. Julio Urias, we always had him. But
and Dustin May also. He looked great on opening day.
Yeah. Only giving up 1 run, I believe.
He allowed 1 earned run. He did allow a lot of hits, but only 1 earned run. Hits don't count for the total score at the end. So.
Yeah, and I think if the Dodgers can just sort out their relief pitching a little bit and sort out their pitching in general, because we did have David Price, but since I believe he has a newborn child, he opted out of the season, which if there's any Dodgers fan watching, don't get mad at him. He's just caring about the safety for his family. But if we do figure out our pitching and maybe tweak Alex Wood a little bit, who did have a disappointing start against the loss to the Giants, I think we're perfect because we've got stacked batters.
Yeah.
We've got amazing talent, and we're young. That's the thing. We're going to have a lot of talent for years to come.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the relief pitching, honestly, it's looked good over the first 3 games. But it's the first 3 games against a, to put it lightly, a not the most talented Giants team. Especially now that Buster Posey isn't playing for them right now. But the bullpen looked relatively good. With the exception of last game, when they lost 5-4, and the first relief pitcher came in, pitched 2 innings, and gave up 2 runs. Besides that, no one gave up any runs, and also in the first 3 games, the bullpen played really well. I think giving a total of 1 run, if not 0. And you said it, Alex Wood, not a very impressive game yesterday. Giving up 3 runs in 3 innings, which isn't great, but Kershaw is out, and I think they're saving Walker Buehler for the Astros.
For the Astros, that's gonna be a good game. Everyone, tune in to watch that.
So they're probably saving him for that. So really, they gotta put some guys in that maybe wouldn't necessarily normally be there. So it's forgivable.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Next up, we have the Washington football team. The Washington used to be the Washington Redskins, changed their name to the Washington football team, and also changed up their jerseys. And now they're not gonna have a logo on the side of their helmet. They're just gonna have the player's number. And so, what are your thoughts on the name, other than on like kind of the rebranding?
I think it was a really good time to change their name. Throughout the years, people have been asking for a change. Um, I didn't like the name Redskins. I feel like they always should have changed it because it kind of was a derogatory term. But it's kind of confusing that I know that there's someone squatting for the names that the Redskins are currently looking for, and that they're using this Washington team as like a placeholder name, which is going to be kind of weird to get used to because I don't know if they're going to be able to get a name until next season.
I
It's
mean,
going to be
they
kind of
did.
strange.
The guy who's kind of who that one guy who we're talking about, kind of hard in the names. He like there was some weird way that Washington could use three names. It was the Americans, Red Wolves, and Renegades were the names. I'm pretty sure
I
that
personally think
were
Red
like
Wolves
some of
is
their
the best
choices.
choice.
I think like football team is just so bland, and it's just I mean
Yeah,
it's just it's like at least put a little bit like that was just zero effort. Like you could put a little bit of effort into getting a new name.
yeah. I mean, I think it's known that it's a placeholder name, but like you said, there was no effort in when coming up with that. And I think that if the Redskins are going to change, they should do a complete rebranding. So I think it was necessary for them to like take this placeholder name, but like they could have just put some effort into it. Like Washington football team, really? That's like naming the Lakers if you had to change the name. Los Angeles basketball
Basketball
team.
team.
That it's just unoriginal, but it was necessary. The name change was necessary, but the way that they handled it, I think, was not the best. That's the
The,
best way they could have.
the name change is too late. I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
they had it's not like it just came up within the past couple of months that people started getting on about the name. It's been years and years. They
yeah,
always could change the name, but Dan Snyder has been stubborn.
yeah. I think that's one thing that Dan Snyder needs to do. He kind of needs to, I guess, wake up a little bit. It's time for a change in Washington. Washington historically, or in the past few years, hasn't been an amazing team. I think after the tragic loss of Sean Taylor, they kind of spiraled downwards, and they haven't had an amazing team since. So I think a complete culture change, a complete rebrand of the team would be perfect for them. But Dan Snyder kind of neglected that for years and years, and finally he kind of came around to changing the name. But as you said, it's just way too late at this point. They still should do it, but he should have listened years ago when people were asking for the name change, because I think that would have been a lot better for the team in general.
All right, let's move out of this segment and move into our next one. Time for fast break news. Fast break news. We're just gonna give you a couple quick news stories. We're gonna cover it quickly and move on. Cover some little news stories. First and foremost, reportedly, the Knicks and the Nets are both interested in a Zach LaVine trade. What do you think about this, Jack?
Um, I think this would be if the Nets got Zach LaVine, that'd be a huge change. And I think that they're already a really talented team, but that'd push them even more because even though Zach LaVine isn't a superstar, he's a very solid player. He's a very good player. I'd even call him just a star in general. And the Knicks really do need help. Um, I think that they might get LaMelo, and then LaMelo and LaVine would probably be a good pair. But honestly, I think if he went to the Nets, that would be better in my opinion because the Knicks still need a little bit of work. And I think if they're going to, or since they're rebuilding right now, I think a younger star or just a younger player in general will be better for now. And then they could add more star power later on.
I mean, Zach LaVine's only 25. He's not that old.
Yeah, but I think like since the Knicks are such a big market, I think bringing attention by bringing in someone like LaMelo Ball, who has so much hype around him and just like such a famous name, would be good for them because then they could bring in other stars and attract them over. But actually, changing my point, I think if the Knicks got Zach LaVine, that would be good, but I'd rather see him go to the Nets.
I think if you went to the Nets, I mean, the Nets already, in the next couple of years, are going to be they're going to be contending in the East. Like, they're probably one of the top teams in the East, along with, like, the Bucks and the Celtics, et cetera, because, this season, KD was out, and Kyrie also dealt with a couple injuries, and they're both not going to be playing in the bubble. But and then also they've got lots of other good talent on the team. And I
Yeah.
think Zach Levine will be very good. I think that pushed him over the edge, and I think that definitely I don't know if I would say they make them the best team in the East, but it make them very, very close. So I think it'd be good for the Nets, and then for and I think it'd be good for both teams, honestly.
Yeah.
And the only team it won't be good for is the Bulls if it goes to the Knicks, because the Knicks, like, not to say they don't have any talent on the team, but I think the Nets definitely have a lot more to offer the Bulls than the Knicks do.
Agreed.
Next up, we have Domantas Sabonis. He was out with a foot injury. He left the bubble a couple of days ago with a foot injury. Reportedly, according to the Pacers medical staff, it's a serious foot injury. The return is still undetermined for Sabonis, but I think personally this is a big hit to the Pacers' chance of, kind of – the Pacers and 76ers right now are tied for the 5th seed in the East, and I think now the Pacers definitely are going to drop to the 6th seed. Won't go any farther because they're way ahead of the Nets and Magic, but they're probably not going to be able to beat out the 76ers since Domantas Sabonis has been their best player all season. No, he was an all-star this year, so it's just it's a bummer for Pacers fans that they're probably not going to be able to hold out the 76ers. And now, if they were the 5 seed, they'd most likely be playing the Heat in the first round of the playoffs. If they're the 6th seed, they're probably going to be playing the Celtics. You could argue that here by the Celtics. I don't think so. So I think there's that. But the 76ers, even if the Pacers did have Domantas Sabonis, I still think the 76ers they're really, really good. And also Ben Simmons has been looking phenomenal in scrimmages. So
Yes, I agree with you, but I'm sorry to say, but I think this marks probably the end for the Pacers because the Pacers weren't the best team, but now getting their best player taken out and probably not coming back with that foot injury probably marks the end of their run in the bubble. And obviously, I hope Sabonis heals, but depending on how bad this foot injury could be, it could alter the course of his career. Obviously, I hope not because he's a young, promising player and he's really talented. But I think for now, I'm sorry to say it, Pacers fans, but I think this might be the end of your guys' ride in the bubble. Moving on, Kyle Hendricks has been on a tear recently. He's the 5th player since 1993 to shout out a team on opening day, leading for the Cubs to eventually win that game. How do you feel about this, Brendan?
I think it's really good. I mean, one game like a shutout is obviously great. It shows promise and stuff for a possible good season, but obviously doesn't mean now they're gonna win the World Series. But I think it's a cool little moment to highlight for him. The only 4 people do since 1993 are Bartolo Colon in 2002, Randy Johnson also in 2002, Hideo Nomo in 2003, and Clayton Kershaw in 2013. So first in 2013, that's pretty good. Kyle Hendricks, he allowed only 3 hits and he had 9 strikeouts, so a good game from him. All right, so let's move on now. The NHL has a new team. Their 32nd NHL team, the Seattle Kraken. What do you think of the Seattle Kraken?
Personally, I'm not a huge NHL fan, but I think this is exciting for the NHL, and I think this is really going to bring awareness to the league itself because it hasn't always been the most popular league in America. Now that they're adding more teams, obviously to the Vegas Golden Knights, who were amazing their first season. Now that they're expanding with more teams, I think this is just going to expand the fan base, adding a team in Seattle. Because other sports leagues like the NBA, NFL, MLB, they haven't added teams in a long time, but the NHL is just expanding to bring more awareness to their league, which I think is great. And I think Seattle having a team will make the NHL a lot more interesting. And, they've got a really cool team name and really cool team branding. So I think this is a pretty exciting moment for the NHL.
Yeah, I really like the logo and the colors. I think it's really cool. When I saw the logo at first, for some reason, I got it confused with the Seattle Mariners logo. They're kind of similar with the color, and it's both an S. But I think it's nice that the NHL has reached 32 teams. It's a good number. That's what the NFL is at. So yeah, and finally, the last part of Fast Break News we have for you. The other day, Senesa Estrada knocked out Miranda Atkins in just 7 seconds, making it one of the fastest knockouts in women's boxing history. We'll play it for you now.
I think Estrada should end this quickly.
Atkins reluctant to come out of her corner. 8 left of 1, 2, 3, 4. It was Lamb versus Lion. It is.
Okay. I personally am a big combat sports fan. I don't know about you, Brendan, but that is actually a very impressive knockout. I don't watch a lot of boxing. I usually watch MMA, but seeing someone get knocked out in that sort of time is always entertaining. Obviously, you've got to feel bad for the person getting knocked out. But it's fun always seeing like the preparation go into just a few moments of like the sport. It just makes it feel like a really funny, entertaining moment. But that was very impressive right there.
All right, guys. Now we're going to move into a little fun game segment called Fluke or Fortune. Fluke or Fortune is where a player who isn't normally considered a star in his or her respective league is playing really, really well. And we determine whether or not we think it's just a fluke and they'll go back to normal soon, or if the team they play for has really struck some fortune. Today's player is Bull, the center for the Denver Nuggets. Bull so far has played 2 scrimmages in the NBA bubble. His stats in this first game were he had 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 blocks. And then his stats in the second game, Jack?
He had 15 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and 1 steal in 36 minutes of play against the Pelicans.
Yeah, so he's been playing really well so far. His averages are 15.5 points a game, a 36.4 field goal percentage, a 26.7 three-point percentage, 50% from the free throw line, 6.5 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, 0.5 steals per game. So he's looking pretty good right now. Jack, in your opinion, do you think this is a fluke or do you think it's fortune?
I think this is fortune because the young 20-year-old has obviously got so much potential, especially with his dad being Manute Bull. He's kind of like his dad, but he's like really upgraded his shooting. I think he's just what the new kind of center in the NBA is. They can block, they can get rebounds, but also they can shoot because now obviously you can see Bull's 3-point. He went 2 for 7 in his last game, which isn't stellar, but it's actually really pretty good for a center. So I think that he's got a lot of potential, and I think he's going to keep playing like this in the future.
Yeah. All right, so you're saying fortune?
Yes.
All right, for me, do I think it's fluke or do I think it's fortune? I am honestly somewhere in the middle because he's getting a lot of minutes right now in the scrimmages as he's young and I want to see what he can do. But at the same time, he's doing really, really well. So I think he is definitely going to improve, like next season, if so on. So it's definitely going to be better than what he was this regular season. You know, he didn't get barely any playing time, but I don't necessarily think he's going to, you know, average 16 points a game. You know, so I'm gonna go somewhere in the middle of fluke or fortune. I'm leaning a little bit more towards the fortune side because I do think he's good. I think he is a little underrated in my opinion. I mean, I won't say like he's underrated, but he's definitely hyped a lot, if you know what I mean. Like he's a kind of like a fan favorite, kind of a meme. So, but people don't necessarily, if you ask someone who are your top 15 centers in the league, they wouldn't necessarily include him in that list. I think he can maybe visit a couple, you know, all-star games in his career.
Agreed.
All right. Next segment, we have top 10 countdown. Top 10 countdown, we give a top 10 list of pretty much anything. We do this every couple of episodes, and if you have any recommendations for a top 10 list, you can comment down below today's top 10 list is our top 10 NBA teams. I'll go first. My top 10 NBA teams. All right, we're going to start at number 10. Number 10, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. For me, this number 10 spot between the Thunder and the Rockets, and you can make a really good case for either of them. It was really just like, it's kind of a coin toss for me, but the reason that I picked the Thunder over the Rockets is because, honestly, I haven't seen any of the Rockets scrimmages. I've seen some of the Thunder scrimmages, and they looked phenomenal. So that's really why I picked them. And also because I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he was starting to become a real star this season. And I don't know, this is kind of some gut feeling, but I feel like he's going to do really, really well in the playoffs. For me, at number 9, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers, they're very talented, as we all know, but they've had some problems in terms of injuries and other things over the past couple of years. And this year, I think the break from basketball, the Corona break, the Ro break, I think will actually do them good because I think it'll time to get everyone healthy. And also, apparently they've developed a good way to get Al Horford into a really good role. And I think they're gonna be the 5 seed in the East. I don't think they're gonna be able to pass the Heat though, and that's why I have the Heat at number 8. The Miami Heat have been really, really good all year. On paper, you could make the argument that teams like the 76ers are better than them. But in terms of what I have seen all year from them, honestly, I think they're the better team because, well, you could say, well, obviously they're higher than the standings and all that, but also because I think Jimmy Butler's been really, really good this season, right? And Bam Adebayo is a candidate for most improved player this year. I feel like it's going to be either him or Brandon Ingram who wins the award. And they've also they traded for Iguodala a couple months ago, and I think Tyler Hero has been a good piece for them. I think they're really good, and I honestly, this might be a little bit of a stretch. I think they're a dark horse candidate to win the whole thing this year. I think they're definitely gonna make the second round in my opinion. As the 4 seed being the 76ers. And then second round, if what I predict actually happens in the second round, they would end up playing the Bucks, which, hear me out here, the Bucks are definitely the best team in the East by far. But I feel like you never know what can happen, and I think, even barring injury, I feel like the Heat can force 7 games, and you never know what can happen in Game 7. All right. At number 7 on my list, we have the Utah Jazz. I was very, very high on the Utah Jazz going into the season when they got Mike Conley and, they got Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, I think, are both superstars in this league. They're both, all-pro players. And Mike Conley's a great veteran leader for that team. And they've also got a bunch of other good veterans like Joe Ingles and et cetera, et cetera. And I thought they were going to be the 3 seed in the West going into the season. Now it looks like they're going to be the 4 seed behind the Nuggets. And I feel like, now I could say that the Nuggets definitely look like the better team, but at the beginning of the season, I was very high on the Jazz, and I still think they're a very good team. That's why I had them here in my top 10. I think they are definitely going to make it out of the first round. I don't know if they'll make it out of the second round, though. If they make it out of the first round, they'll probably end up playing either the Lakers or the Clippers, and I don't think they're going to be able to beat any of those teams in 7 games. But they are a very good team to be here at number 7. At number 6, I have the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are currently sitting at the 2 seed in the East, and they've been amazing all season. Pascal Siakam really, really turned out. He won Most Improved Player last year, but this year, you can make the argument for winning again because he went from a meh player to a good player, and now he's gone to a great player. And also Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet have stepped up this season, and it's weird that, with the loss of Kawhi, that they've still been able to have such a great season, stay the 2 seed. But everyone has been stepping up for them. So, it really should kind of no surprise if we look back at the season they've had this year. Now at number 5, I have the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are the 3rd seed in the West right now. And in my opinion, they're up there with the Clippers and the Lakers in the West. Honestly, I feel like if they end up playing the Clippers or the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals or Western Conference Semifinals, I think they have a good chance that they could beat them. Honestly, I think Nikola Jokic obviously is one of the best centers in the league. He can play like a point guard. He can play like a center. He can do everything. He started at point guard on the scrimmages. He's unbelievable. Jamal Murray obviously is great. So, they've been very, very good this season. So I think that's why I put them here at number 5. Number 4, we have the Boston Celtics. Now, the Celtics or the Raptors, that's a big thing right now for the 2 seed in the East. I think the Raptors might end up going at the 2 seed, but if they meet in the playoffs, I think the Celtics will win in a 7-game series because Jason Tatum over late before the Corona break in basketball he looks like he was going to be one of the future faces of the league, I still think he is, and I think he's the best player on their team right now. He's unbelievable. He's like kind of, a mini LeBron, right now. He can do it all. He can shoot. He can pass. He can dribble. He can finish. He can play defense. He's great. And then also you got Kemba Walker right now, who there's been some stuff around him that not great stuff, but I think when time comes, Kemba Walker, he's always been a great player. He kind of carried the Hornets to almost making the playoffs for so long. And now I think he can really do a good job and he's going to do a really good job with the Celtics. And has done a really good job. And they've also got a bunch of really, really good, they're role players in the Celtics, but anywhere else they could be stars. Like guys like Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Enes Kanter, they're all really, really good. And they've also got that young guy, Robert Williams, who I really like. Number 3, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers, a lot of people think they're going to win it all. Some people think they're nothing like what they seem, But the Clippers are definitely one of the top 3 teams. Kawhi and Paul George, that's their duo. And they've also got lots of good depth in their team with Lou Williams, Patrick Beverly, Montrezl Harrell. They've got a lot of good players in the team. But, on paper, you can make the argument that they're better than the teams they have ahead of them. And, they did beat the Lakers twice over the course of the season. But the most recent game that the Lakers and the Clippers played, the Lakers did pull out the victory, and the Lakers also ended up beating the Bucks that same week. I think that's why the Lakers are ahead of the Clippers. And I had the Lakers at number 2. And I did say that the Lakers beat the Bucks the same weekend, and they did. And LeBron did a great job defending Giannis and stuff. But I think when it comes down to it, the Bucks are just so talented. They've got so much talent on that team that I think that they are got to be number 1, Lakers number 2. It's very close to these top 3. It's very hard. You could have anyone number 1 of these 3, anyone number 2, anyone number 3. But in my opinion, the Bucks are the best team. The best player in the league, in my opinion, Giannis, plus all the people surrounding him are great. Chris Middleton. They got so many good players. Eric Bledsoe. So it's tough not to put them at number 1. Plus, they've shown it all year in their play, being the best team record-wise in the league. So they most likely will have home court advantage if they do make it to the finals. So I think that's why I think they are going to be the 2020 NBA champions.
Now for my list, it's probably not as good because if you haven't noticed, Brendan is our resident basketball dude here. I'm probably not going to go in depth as you did because most of the teams that you chose are on mine, just in different orders. But with number 10, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Um, right now, I don't think they're a contender for the NBA championship. Obviously, they're talented with Luka Doncic. I think Luka Doncic in the future is probably going to be an MVP candidate. And obviously, you've got Kristaps Porzingis. You've got a really talented young team that I think in the future, and if they pick up more talented players, I think will be a contender in the foreseeable future, maybe a few years, or maybe even next year. You never know if they pick up someone special in free agency. But I think they're a very good team that just needs maybe 1 or 2 more years of development to become a star-studded like contender team. Next, I have the Utah Jazz, and just like you said, you have the amazing pair of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. The reason why I put them farther down is probably because I don't think the chemistry between those two is going to be as good as it was before the Corona break because Rudy Gobert kind of got the virus a little bit. Next, I've got the Miami Heat. Throughout the season, they showed how talented they were and how good they were. And they've got young players like Tyler Hero. I think that they probably need to make a splash at free agency because Jimmy Butler is getting a little bit older. But I think they're a very talented team and have a lot of potential. Number 7, this probably isn't as popular as a choice, but I think the Rockets are a really good team right now. They've got a lot of leadership and veterans in their locker room that are superstars. Obviously, James Harden, Russell Wilson. I think if those two can play really well and step it up, even with their small ball lineup, I think they can do really good. Just the one thing that I'm worried about is the size of their players. Say if they play someone like the Nuggets, they will get destroyed because if you saw one of the most recent Nuggets games, Jokic was running point guard. Then you had Bol. Pretty much all of the players on there were either centers or power forwards.
Yeah, they had all front court players.
Yeah.
No small forwards too. All front court players that were either power forward or center.
And speaking of the.
Also, you said Russell Wilson. Did you mean Russell Westbrook?
Yeah. Just forgot I said Russell Wilson instead of Russell Westbrook. At number 6, speaking of the Denver Nuggets, at number 6 I do have the Denver Nuggets with Jokic. And their lineup, it did seem to work. I think they're also a very talented team, and they've got some young studs. Jokic, Bol. We were talking about Bol and Fluker Fortune. Personally, I think it's Fortune. He is, like Brendan said in that segment, he was playing a lot of minutes. I don't think his stats are going to be as good as they are right now. But I think in the next few years, he's definitely going to become an all-star. Number 5, I have the reigning NBA champions and the Toronto Raptors. Even without Kawhi Leonard, they still prove themselves as one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Just by looking at their play, you know that they're really good. They're not a team that's like, oh, they might underperform. You know they're going to be solid. Probably not a championship contender because that's left for the top 3 teams. But I think that they are a very good team. And I wouldn't say a dark horse candidate to win the NBA Finals, but they're kind of an underdog. But honestly, I don't think they are going to. And number 4, someone that does have a greater chance, or someone that's got a chance as the top 3 teams, you can probably guess, are the Celtics. I completely agree with what Brendan said when he was talking about the Celtics. Tatum is such an amazing player. I think he can carry them. And then Kemba Walker, like he said, he does have some problems, but he's a very solid player. He did carry the Hornets for basically his entire career before he came to the Celtics. Number 3, the top 3 are the ones that you can interchange, but they all have a very good chance to win the finals. And at number 3, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. Coming into the season, the Clippers were supposed to be the best team in the league or second best team in the league. I wouldn't say they had a disappointing season, but Paul George didn't have the season that I expected him to, which kind of led to them winning less games. But even when I say that, they're still an incredible team, and they're still number 3 on my list. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, he's got ice in his veins. And I think the Clippers do have a really good chance to win the finals, but not as much as my next 2 teams. I think will meet each other in the NBA Finals. At number 2, I have the Los Angeles Lakers, and at number 1, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. Like Brendan said, obviously the Bucks are the number 1 seed. They have the highest, or they have the best record statistically speaking. And I really hope both of these teams get to the finals because that'd be a very entertaining final. LeBron, AD. Then you have obviously Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think they're the 2 best teams in the league, definitely, and I think that's a very good matchup, and I think it's the most probable matchup in the NBA Finals. And an honorable mention, the 76ers. So usually they would crack my top 10, usually around 7 or 8, but it's just, you don't know what's going to happen. If they have injuries, and they're probably not going to go that far. You really need the players on their team to play really well, but if they do play really well, they're definitely a contender. I'd say around 5th, 6th, 7th best team in the league. But the one asterisk is if they can be healthy and if they can play well once they're healthy. And that's going to conclude my list.
Yeah, the 76ers definitely do have a lot of injured-prone players on their team. And also, in terms of the top three, we both have the exact same top three. In my opinion, it's really 1A, 1B, 1C with those three teams. They're all so good. All right, so that concludes our top 10 countdown segment. Next up, we have the question of the episode.
Question of the episode.
The question of the episode today is, who will be the 8th seed in the Western Conference for the NBA playoffs this year?
And I think both of us have the same answer. Let's try to say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. The
New Orleans Pelicans. Yeah,
yeah.
New Orleans Pelicans. So,
or actually, race between the Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies. I think the Grizzlies probably have a better chance, but I'm telling myself in my head that I want the Pelicans to win because I like Zion. I'm a Zion fanboy. I'm a bandwagon. Don't at me. But I think the two teams that probably have the best chance are the Memphis Grizzlies and the Pelicans. But I'm just going to lean on the side of the Pelicans, even though it's probably go against statistical odds. But, yeah, Pelicans in my book.
Yeah, I mean, the requirements to force a play-in tournament, I think the Pelicans will meet because they have by far the easiest schedule of any NBA team. You know, I'm not going to go as far to say they can overtake the Grizzlies as the 8th seed before the play-in tournament, but it's possible. But I don't think that's going to happen. But if it comes down, they do have to play the Grizzlies to get in. They have to win 2 in a row. I think it's very possible. I do think the Pelicans are the better team. You know, Zion hasn't been playing for most of this. Didn't play for most of the season, so you know, I think the Pelicans definitely are the better team. You know, they've got Zion Williamson, who's honestly, he's a superstar right now.
I agree, and I think that the Pelicans, when you look at standings, that they look like a worse team than they actually are because they did have a very slow start to the season, especially without Zion. But in the game Zion played, he was incredible. Pelicans fans, you have a really bright superstar.
Yeah, and plus he's matched with the other guy who said might win most improved player, either him or Bam, is Brandon Ingram. You know, ever since he got traded, you know, we've seen and Lonzo Ball also has improved a lot since he got traded. We see this a lot with young players getting traded from the Lakers. It's interesting how it works. You know,
Hey, who's your turn next?
Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell, Lou Williams, young players who were traded from the Lakers and immediately once they got traded, got better. Got either a lot better and turned into like all-stars like Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell, or got a little bit better and just improved slightly and became a solid starter. Lonzo Ball, Julius Randle, and even Lou Williams, you could say is a solid starter, but he comes off the bench, you know, but he wins 6-man of the year almost every year.
Agreed. And speaking about Lonzo Ball, when you really see he's only 22, a lot of people just wrote him off immediately saying, oh, he's the biggest draft bust you could ever have. I don't necessarily think he's a bad player, and personally, I think he's going to get a lot better, maybe even become a star in the future because he's so young, and you can already see discipline in his game. He doesn't play like a self-centered player. He gets a lot of assists. I think that he could become a very good role player in the future, and I think he could even become a star in the future.
Yeah, Lonzo and Zion is honestly going to be really fun to watch. You know, Lonzo, just the way he plays, just the way those two play.
I agree. I think it could be Lob City 2.0 with Lonzo lobbing up those passes for Zion, throwing them down, because that's a very exciting future. There's probably going to be a lot of amazing highlights coming out of the Pelicans. So Pelican fans, be excited. You've got a bright future.
Yeah. All right. So that, my friends, is going to wrap it up for our first ever episode on the JBA All In Podcast. Hopefully you did enjoy, and hopefully you will consider, following, subscribing, liking, whatever, on whatever platform you're doing. Show your support if you enjoy, and comment down ideas for us, for like top 10 countdown, or like any news stories we should cover. Maybe you disagree with us or you agree with us. Tell us what you think about some of the topics we discussed today, and have a great day.
If you have any tips or feedback, please don't be afraid to leave in the comments. We'll always take criticism so we can improve in the future.
Right.
Thank you for watching.
We'll see you next time.